So for part of this panel, what we're going to do is, the rule is there is no rule, right? So feel free to interrupt. Feel free to agree or disagree. Actually, I'll enter a little politics. No filibusters allowed. So if you go more than 10 minutes, I'm going to cut you off on a meeting.
We can interrupt you as well, right?
That's right, you could. Right.
So this is Thunderdome.
This is standard from that point of view. So part of this panel, hopefully we're going to discuss a little bit about what NaaS is for AI, right? We're going to talk about some of the things associated with the transformation that's required from a service provider to implement it, but then get into some of the real use cases that you see out there and some of the monetization opportunities from that side of it. But then we have Henry and some other people here talk about the ecosystem and the partnerships that's required from a governance standards and that point of view. And if we have time, we're going to discuss some of the forward-looking statements. So instead of me, just introduce yourself, your company, your role really quickly before we get started.
Sure. Great to be here with everyone. Christian Nascimento with Comcast Business. I have responsibility for connectivity and digital customer solutions.
I'm a VP Digital Infrastructure at Orange Business. So I'm driving our 3C product strategy, connectivity, cloud, cyber. So happy to be here again and continue the conversation.
Hi everyone, Mirko Voltolini at Colt. I run technology innovation, so I have partly more short mid-term responsibility of building capabilities components for our networks, for our services, as well as long-term innovation. So I build stuff at Colt, in short.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Henry Calvert from the GSMA. I'm head of networks at the GSMA, but I'm also an industry lead for an initiative we call Open Gateway, which is about standardization of the exposure of network capabilities through APIs.
Excellent. Now, maybe because I've been around asking different people different questions, right? I hear a lot of terms regarding AI-ready networks and now NaaS for AI. What I want to do is set the base, whoever wants to volunteer, is get your views on what the definitions of that, so the audience could see in line based on the question that we go forward with. Anybody want to start first? Their view?
Volunteer, yeah. No problem. As I said before, there are many things we don't know with AI. There is a lot of noise, very difficult to identify the right signals out there. And right now it's all about AI. Tomorrow it will be Agentic. The day after tomorrow it might be AGI, who knows. But how are we going to reach AGI through LLM? If you listen to what Yann Lequin said, the chief AI officer at Meta, the answer is no. We'll need more technologies to get there. But in any case, enterprises, they will have to face a lot of uncertainties out there. So they will need to go to the next level in terms of flexibility to embark those new technologies. So I believe that NaaS is really a key asset that they should have into their pockets to be able to pivot super quickly and adopt those new technologies.
Anybody else?
Yeah, maybe I just can add to that. If you just bring it down again to the question on what is network for NaaS for AI, I think we need to, there are some things that we know. There is lots of uncertainty, but some things we know. There's clearly a difference between training and inference, if you look at the type of traffic. And I think what we see, NaaS for AI is going to build on top of the current NaaS capabilities. So it will continue to be programmable, self-serve, real-time, and also with flexible commercial model. But if you look at training, on top of the current typical focus of NaaS for AI is going to add high-speed bandwidth. I think we know that is already the case. What we still don't see yet, I think for inference, we're going to see a different type of network. It's going to be a lot more dynamic, a lot more, needs to be a lot more secure because it will need to handle traffic data that needs to be protected. It will need to be observable. So we're going to see something which is not there yet today, but will address what we think is the coming wave of inference for enterprises.
Right. And I think inference is a good point because I think some of the requirements for inference is different than training, right? And I think service providers are really geared for that.
Yeah, definitely not the same amount of bandwidth, but a lot more intelligence, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think you can think about NaaS today without AI. And so I don't think about it as NaaS for AI. I think about it as one intelligent ecosystem.
Okay.
And so if you think about it that way, then there's a network, and AI then becomes part of that at every level. And so for us, it's building AI directly into the network to help load balancing and preventing outages and identifying fiber cuts before they happen and weather anomalies. And then taking that to the customer-facing aspect with portals and doing ticket summarization and other types of AI operations. And then as we take it all the way through to what's coming, which is, I think everyone agreed today, like Agentic AI, and allowing the customer to interact with an automation, and then at some point, the customer's automation to interact with our automation. And so I think it's really about, AI is really kind of transforming how we think about networking. So I don't think about it as separate, individual, discrete things. It's all kind of one holistic component.
That makes sense there. Now, Benjamin, there was something you said in the past about NaaS leveraging the thoughts on process for that. You want to add on to that?
Yeah, and in terms of, then it comes to monetization.
Yeah.
We have some different use cases and we monetize AI at multiple levels at Orange. So the first one is to couple NaaS with GPU as a service. Yeah. But there are many players out there in the tech industry that are offering GPU as a service. So we decided to couple this with our consulting and advisory capabilities at Orange. So for instance, in Europe, we have a customer in the energy business that send technicians out there on the field to perform a maintenance operation. Yeah. And we built for this customer a solution where their technicians on the field with their tablet, with only a few clicks, they will generate an automated and highly customized reports to their own customers. Right. And that solution is relying on an LLM, on our private cloud infrastructure. Yeah. And then with our development teams, we help the customer embark AI into their core applications. Okay. So it's about delivering a kind of one-stop shop experience for the customers out there.
Yeah, and I think there was a quote you mentioned, I wrote it down. It says, so leveraging NaaS is an option to pivot quickly, right? Which I thought was an excellent quote. Now, you talked about some issues related to some of your use cases and monetization, which is always the important part, so that we don't just fall in love with technology, right? There's some business opportunities, some real use cases. What are some of the real examples, without violating NDAs, that you can talk about opportunities to monetize for service providers? And you work with a lot of enterprise customers, Christian, right? Anything you could elaborate that you can share on that piece there?
Yeah, I mean, I guess service is in the name, right? Network as a service. Right. And so, what we're seeing is customers that want to make sure that they have, the right network, the right bandwidth to enable the things that they're doing with AI and other technologies. And so, making sure that we're serving them in a way that's meeting them where they want to be met is important. And then I think there are natural monetization opportunities that happen on top of that. Just when you think about AI ops and the insights, when you combine our connectivity products and our secure networking products, the insights that we can pull from our network and their network and then deliver them as a service, I think there's a lot of opportunity there for monetization.
Right, excellent. And Mirko, you're working with some API and automation. Anything that you can share that's public on the work you're doing?
Yeah, so again, maybe going back to what I was saying earlier, we think, again, particularly for inference, there's going to be an opportunity. Yeah. Is maybe not there yet, but we think it's going to come because enterprises will need to adopt agentic AI models and will need inference. So inference is going to move to the edge. Benjamin was talking about that. I think if you look at what happened in the past, machine learning, so the previous generation, the still current generation of AI, drove deployment on the edge in proximity of the customers, typically in the enterprise environment, somewhere close to. And we think it's going to happen also for the agentic GenAI type of workloads. So I think that will drive demand for, again, a different type of networks, which will require also to be exposed through APIs. If you think about an agent controlling networks, typically multi-domain, will need to be able to talk north-south to the network, different elements of the network stack, as well as east-west with other operators, because some of the tools, capabilities will likely reside outside domain of the operator. So you will have to have also a standard communication mechanism. We're talking about MCP earlier, but also the payloads within that, which is what Mplify is also looking at the moment, will be key.
I think it's an important point he brings up, because if we look at how telecommunications has been impacting enterprise, it's been very much point solutions, point-to-point solutions. Mm-hmm. And we now are moving into an era where AI can actually alleviate a platform that can actually go across vertical different segments rather than just be captured in one segment. And that is going to change the monetization paradigm, because it's going to bring some real good cost economics in actually serving the customer. And the amount that we can actually standardize, you mentioned east-west interfaces, be brilliant to get the operators to interoperate between each other. But first of all, it needs to be standardized, so the north-south interface is a lot more cost-effective than it actually has been, because there's so many just single-point solutions out there in the enterprise market.
Yeah, and I think it's a question that I think about a lot, because when you look at some of these type of different models, right? Sometimes it's who's developing the model, what's the heritage, and what is the bias in those models. So I think that standardization becomes important, I think, in that area where that, like if you look at what BGP did for scale on the internet, that part becomes an important part as we look at these agents and AI across those domains, which is what you're talking about, Henry. That's the part I got to see how that's being addressed.
The other thing is, we look at a lot of presentation slides, they're all one-dimensional.
Yeah.
I mean, networks are massively complex. You know, they're very difficult to actually configure, provision, maintain in the facts. Being able to expose the understanding of where a network's at, what its configuration is, you can start to meet SLAs that you're actually putting from the enterprise marketplace a lot more cleanly than we've ever have done before, especially when it's a standardized basis across them.
I mean, that's part of the complexity that can get pulled out, right? In a couple different ways. One, AI can be used, you know, just on the SLA and the SLO aspect. It can be used to make that really clear and identify and call that out. But it also can pull costs and complexity out of the management of the network itself. And so if you can make sure that the network is running optimally and network is up more than it has been historically, like that's part of the monetization story too. It's the complexity that gets pulled out.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, from that side of it, the complexity to pull out. I'm just more concerned about the interdomain bias that comes across, and I think that as to Miko, Pascal talked about these AI agents being able to talk like to an API from that side of it. I mean, how far away are we from something like that happening, since you work a lot with some of this automation and API stuff?
I mean, I think we need to be pragmatic. It's the beginning of the journey. I remember last year people were saying it's going to be the year of the agent. I'm going to quote a guy, you may know him, Andrej Karpathy, is a scientist, OpenAI, Tesla before, and he said this: the decade of AI agents. It's going to take some time before what we have today is going to mature to a usable manner. I mean, especially reliability of agents is going to come at the question. If you go outside simple task, simple decision making, so the more you make it complex, then you're going to need to have a lot more intelligence. And I think we're going to need to have different type of capabilities. I talked about multi-domains. If you think about Henry mentioned the complexity, we have so many different networks in place, legacy and new. An agent that finds problems within a specific domain with a specific task may be easy enough to implement, but something across the whole network will require orchestration across multiple domains. It will require knowledge that is quite complex. There are things we're looking at, for instance, knowledge graphs today can help create that machine-readable view of the network that can then be injected to create the knowledge. So all these things will need to come together. I think we're going to see some level of maturity probably in 2-3 years with some things we're currently deploying, which are not yet production ready to be fully usable, and then it will evolve from there. So I think I'm positive, but it will take time.
That it will take time there. Yeah, I think we have to start somewhere, right, from that side of it. Now, one of the things I think that you saw, Pascal, at the end was talk about the security side of it. How do you, maybe Henry, we'll start you as a standards guy, right? How do you able to maintain compliancy and security as you look at some of the stuff that Mirko's talking about?
I think, I mean, the efforts that we do on bringing collaboration together to talk about where the threat landscape is, and we're just expanding the threat landscape here, you know, more different vectors that people can actually start to look at and attack. It's very difficult. I mean, we do bring it all together. To me, it's a very humanistic and simple thing. And maybe the others can actually give a more educated answer.
Yeah.
But we still see a lot of human error.
Yeah.
Now, maybe that gets eliminated. I mean, some of the loss of data or the access or the regime is due to the fact of human intervention, not actually the systems themselves breaking down. Yes, you can get attacks, but usually the gate is opened by someone that has a sort of an issue with that. So I do see that if we can employ techniques that actually reduces that human element, then we're starting to actually knit together a threat landscape that's better and more secure than it has been. Just taking the human element out of it, if I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah, usually. And now taking the human element, always when I worked in Wall Street, I always talked about like I used to protect it by having 2 security different vendors, from one vendor than another vendor, so it was difficult, but social engineering was always a problem. Right, you would have violations. I remember when I had a policy that says no mobile device, no tablets, just because we're Wall Street, we need that security. Then my CEO goes, look what I received for my birthday. So I'm like, change your policy, we're accepting iTablets now and all this type of stuff like that. So yeah, so security is always a concern. Now, if we move into the part of the edge investments, Ben, you've got some samples with some customers that, are you able to share anything, some of the investments you made?
I can share, sure.
Yeah.
If we work backwards from the needs of our industrial customers, it costs tons of money for those customers to send technicians or engineers on the critical sites or on the factories.
Sure.
And in the meantime, they are not keen to let the IT world get into their factories for obvious security reasons. So to tackle that issue, we designed a solution with our partner here, so Schneider Electric, leveraging our NaaS platform. And it is super simple. We are leveraging NaaS here to allow technicians and engineers take control over the machines or IoT devices running into the factories remotely. And with that solution, by design, the network is down. So that's how you reach the highest level of security. No one can access to anything outside the factory. And then once a technician wants to perform an operation, he pushes one button, it triggers one API call, and then the network is up. And then after the operation is performed, the network goes back to the initial state, and it is down again. And it brings 3 benefits to customer here. The first one is about money. Like they save tons of money by not sending technicians into their factories all the time to perform any operation. And the second is about flexibility. Because machine and IoT devices, they are using the ZTP approach, the zero-touch provisioning. So everything is connected by design to our NaaS platform. And third, it's about security. And NaaS plays a key role here because it bridges the gap between the physical worlds, where human beings are living, by the way, and as well as factories, and with the digital world. So NaaS here brings a lot of value by building the secure bridge between those 2 worlds.
Excellent. And Mirko, you're working on some experiment. I don't know if you want to call it experiment, how to add real value to business on the edge there.
Yeah. But can I go back to the previous question?
Yeah, of course.
Disrupt the flow. I think
Good. I want interruptions. Go.
So just a thought. The type of traffic we're seeing and we're going to see on the network driven by AI is going to need another type of security, so application level security. Things that we know already how to do, but we need to embed this into the same solution. Because, again, data that is going to flow over the network here is going to be going to require a lot more security protection. It's typically sensitive data. And we're not going to be able to move all the data in the same location, so we're going to need to have that type of security. I think sovereignty also has been mentioned today for cloud. We think sovereignty will also apply to networks. So you're going to need to have a way to constrain traffic that today is, again, embryonic, it's in place, but it's not yet mature, that we, when I have to control how traffic is routed, whether it goes through certain locations or not. So I think this type of application level security and intelligent capabilities will be required to handle this type of traffic. So back to the question, edge. So I was talking about earlier about we expect to see a wave of inference at the edge, inference being distributed. And I think that's primarily, is not because of efficiency, primarily because, again, of sovereignty, proximity, the need to maintain data within certain domains. And I think that's an opportunity.
Okay.
We've been looking at this potential problem as a potential service capabilities we want to build. So the idea is that we build inference at the edge in a dedicated manner. Again, if you go back to the history of AI, machine learning, that has then materialized, and I think lots of enterprises today are using this type of setup, edge, machine learning at the edge in proximity. So the same thing will happen also for GenAI.
Okay.
And I think that's an opportunity. We own, especially we own locations, customer prem, and I think that's one of the strengths of the operators. Going back to how do we differentiate ourselves compared to other players in the market, owning the assets, the premise is going to be key for us.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we shouldn't give up.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the inference is at the edge, but I don't know, maybe I'll just add based on what you said is, in talking to some of the board level folks, one of the parts that they're concerned about from an investment perspective is we've invested in the edge before when it got related to MEC, multi-service edge computing, and they didn't get the payback for that side of it. So are you running into any of you guys those challenges?
Let me just comment again on this, if I can. The difference, I think, is a waste of money if you deploy in advance lots of capacity at the network edge, so in a shared location. You may need some, but I think what I'm talking here is about dedicated machines, smaller, a lot smaller, dedicated for customers that will be used for dedicated edge compute for AI.
Got it.
And I think that can be something that can be deployed on a on a success-driven basis rather than being done in advance. I think we're not going to repeat again the story of Mac deployments. That's going to be a disaster.
Yeah, and I think that's the part where I get the resistance when it gets to the investment. Are you getting into any of that discussion? Yeah.
I'm going to go back, I think, to two questions. I'm starting to lose track a little bit.
It's okay.
But I think it's the lights. When we think about the investment, I think to me it takes me back to the question a couple back around, are we getting to the point of the agentic agents, talking to the network from other from customers, and I think we talked a little bit about like the security concerns and how we're in the first innings. So to me, it's like a matter of training and building that intelligence, and I think that's where a lot of the investment's going to come in. And I think that it is early days to kind of prove that out. But it does feel like there is a lot of momentum going towards that, and so I think that maybe this time's a little different than last time because there are more things that can be done, at the edge or hybrid edge, around security, around agentic AI that can prove out those value propositions.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, Benjamin, just to add on to, one of the big slides you had there was the traffic, which is something I've been talking about, right? I get into debates about, I don't see the traffic growth with AI yet, right? So you validated when there was zero example, but then there's the next stage where there's a debate about saying some of the knowledge is going to move to the phone, and the data that'll be exchanged will be metadata, right? But you mentioned that agentic AI, right? You see that. How do you see that growing, and what are you doing to address that from your network investment?
Yeah, I think it's all about flexibility out there and giving data sets to our customer because, as we all said, there are plenty of things we don't know here.
Yeah.
So in the agentic AI era, there will be new traffic patterns because of the volatility and the fact that agents cannot predict what they are going to do. Second thing, let's keep in mind as well that our networks have been designed for heavy cache content and heavy download.
Okay.
And it will be quite the opposite in the agentic era, so second thing. And third one, it's about a shift in terms of value. Because the value was about capacity and volume, and it will shift deterministic routing. And the decision, they will not be made anymore by people. They will be made by agents, or pieces of software, basically. It will be based on latency and trust or price or whatever. Yeah. So this is how it is going to shift in terms of, that's what I mean by new traffic patterns, and those 3 dimensions. And yeah, NaaS plays a key role here to help customers go to the next level in terms of flexibility. And to double down on what you said before about building dedicated infrastructure, in fact, there is a trend as well in Europe, and it's quite the opposite of NaaS, I would say. So okay. I think it's interesting. But we built the largest super AI computer in Europe for the French Ministry of Army in partnership with HP. Okay. And those kind of customers, they are looking for partners that have experience in managing large-scale infrastructure, but as well with the local presence, with the people that are operating close to the customer. And it's a kind of unique combination that we bring to the table in the industry. So we should not forget about that as well.
Okay, that's a good point.
There's also the fact that we don't know what the end state's going to look like, and if we're going to interact, or the agents are going to interact with other agents the same way that we do today. Mm-hmm. And so we are, I think, preconditioned to assume we're in that upload-download environment. But if you think about AI becoming an omnipresent, omni-channel intelligence that is interacting with networks and other ecosystems differently, it may be via text message, it may be via voice, it may be a number of different things. And so just the upload and download capacity may just look different by the way that it's being implemented.
I'd like to add that just for a second, because I think our problem today is identifying the traffic. Okay. We don't know the difference of it. I mean, you rightly said earlier the fact that quite a lot of the interpretation at the moment is text-based. Yeah. Okay, we haven't got into a multimodal environment as of yet, so we don't know what the impacts are going to be on the network. I do have a sense at the moment that most of the traffic is within the data centers. Yeah. And the business models are going to drive the fact that most of the traffic is going to stay in the data centers. Right. And yeah, there will be externalities of people having to upload and train and get their inferences right. But once that gets optimized, the question is, okay, is the traffic actually going to come out of the data centers, or is it going to stay in those environments? How does NaaS unlock that? Yeah. So people don't actually drive to these optimized data centers? How does it actually keep to a distributed network? Because a distributed network is where we monetize stuff.
But I mean, maybe let me disagree a little bit on this. I think the environment is going to evolve into the enterprise space, and there will be constraints which are in terms of geographies and where they are located that will drive bandwidth consumption across the board outside data centers. I think yesterday, and today we saw it here, but yesterday at the board, UPMC talked about the amount of data that hospitals have between images and videos. That is massive. It drives gigabyte of data to be moved in very, very high speed. You cannot move hospitals, so they will need to connect to data center. I think that is going to happen across multiple different industry domains in the enterprise space. But obviously, I think that DC to DC and within data center is going to be another order of magnitude still.
We still have to identify this traffic.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. I still think we don't know what's going to come, right? Is the message that comes back, is it going to be a text message, or is it going to be generated content, video, maps, whatnot, that's, you know, a customer's going to have to download or upload? So I think there's a lot of opportunity. We'd love to see the data come out of the data centers.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. Right. It's good for all of us.
It's good for everybody.
Yeah, it's good for all of us. I wonder, just hearing you guys talk about that, I think of like the Black-Scholes equation in Wall Street, where they didn't have a kill switch, right? And by the time they got to where they lost about $2 to $3 billion. Are you thinking of anything like that when you're building these agents at all? I know it's a curveball question, but you made me just think about it when you design these.
I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
You should answer now.
Yeah, you should answer. No, because I'm wondering, when you let these agents loose, right? If some of the things are compromised and stuff like
Well, I
that.
think you have to go back to when you're building it, I guess the point about training and trust and governance, you have to make sure that there's guardrails around
Yeah,
it.
there's got to have guardrails.
So we had the team did a proof of concept around an AI agent in a network. And one of the first questions I asked them when they took me through the demo was, can it negotiate price? Because it was talking about extending bandwidth, increasing bandwidth. And so that's easy if it's a one-to-one yes or no.
Right.
But I've met customers that actually want to negotiate, and so you have to have. I know it's a shocker.
Interesting.
I know you have to build guardrails around that, and that's just like an easy, light example.
easy.
It's not a kill switch type of
It's
example.
not a kill switch, right? Yeah.
I mean, governance is going to be important. We built a team for that.
Yeah.
So you cannot just look at technology. So that the data protection governance, especially in Europe GDPR also as well, needs to be taken into account. I think when you build software, you're going to have a kill switch in any case. That's not driven by AI, but it's typical when you build platforms and solutions. So we haven't done it yet, but I guess we will have that type of capability.
Okay, good. Well, this is a fun part of the panel. Let's get your feedback on where we're going, forward-looking statements. Where do you see this going, where we look at all the way to 2030? Anybody could start, and we'll go around there from that.
I do think there's a lot more automation. I do think it's a lot more omnipresent and omni-channel experiences, not just portal to decision.
Okay.
So I do think that's where it's heading.
Okay, good. Benjamin?
I think we talk a lot about technology here at Mplify. Of course, we all love tech here. And we talk as well about business model, shifting our business model at some point. But I think that there is a key area of improvement where we should do a better job, and it is about digital customer experience. Okay. And I think it is really needed for us to do a better job out there to go to the next level.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point, right? I mean, I tell the story where I was a very naive CTO, create these beautiful designs. My CEO would go, "Where does the customer fit in here?" And I'm like, "Didn't think about it." Let me get back to you on that. So the whole experience, I think, is one, and how do you quantify that customer experience is the important part of it. Mirko?
Yeah, so I think, again, what we see happening and predictions today is going to be that there's going to be a lot of machine-driven communication, so it's going to shift to at different levels, so it will be also different scale. I think also bringing the question back to what should we do, the role of networks needs to be elevated. I think as operators, service providers, we need to get a slice of the pie, because it's going to be critical for us to be participating. And if you look at networks today, they sit somewhere below the rest of the stack, and I think they deserve to be at the same level as the other key technologies. And if you think about, again, enterprise environments or service providers, you have clouds, now AI, IoT, another big thing, and network needs to be at the same level for us to be participating in this space.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, I'm a huge advocate of looking outside in. What are the customer needs? How are they going to get fulfilled? Will voice have a revolution, because it's all going to be conversational in the aspects that we're doing? I think, to your point, I think operators, NaaS is a platform by which operators can think about going up the value chain, rather than just providing, core basic services, without saying that word, dumb pipe, damn it. But, I do see NaaS actually being that access point by which they can go up the value chain and see if they can create some significant value out there.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, because if you look at enterprise customers, the way they're buying technology, right, is fundamentally different, right? They expect connectivity with outcome, some type of go-to-market, and reliable and trust. So I think you're spot on with that, Henry, going forward. Well, that concludes this panel. I want to thank everyone for joining. Thank you for listening. And thank you, guys. Yeah.